if your notes are buzzing or your chord strings keep going dead, stop pressing harder. The problem is where your fingers are, not how hard they're pushing.
Spartans, push!
This lesson builds on micro lesson 3, and once you have these two fixes installed, your chords and single notes are going to start sounding like they're supposed to. Hey everyone, I'm AJ Hansen with Level Up Your Guitar. No sheet music for this video, private lesson link is down below. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's start with the buzzing. You're playing a single note, you press down, and instead of getting a clean note, you get this. Here's what's happening. There's a sweet spot in each fret on each string, and most beginners will miss this sort of thing. Check out the fret space right here. So there's a gap between two pieces of metal on the neck. The fret wire is the metal strip itself. What you want is your fingertips as close to that fret wire as possible on the body side. So when you're playing inside any fret, you want to slide closer to the body within each fret. So when your finger drifts to the middle of the space, that can still work fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But as it gets even closer towards the headstock, you have to press a lot harder to get a clean note. And even then, you might not make it. You hear that, right? It's the same pressure, but completely different results. That's geography, not strength. Now here's a cue I use with every new student starting with their first lesson, and probably a few reminders a few weeks after that, but this really works. Imagine the neck of your guitar is the body of a snake, and then the headstock here is the head of the snake, and then the tuning pegs are the teeth. So within each fret, you don't want to creep towards the headstock, you're going to get bitten. Fortunately, we don't get bitten, but we do get a nasty tone. So again, it's amplified especially in the first fret here because of the nut, but if you're closer to the headstock, you just get buzzy notes everywhere, especially on the fat ones. So back it up, get away from the snake. So that's the snake rule. Fingers close to the fret on the body side, and you'll get a clean note, if not every time, significantly more than you might be getting now. Now for most beginners, at least for me, I tend to assign just doing a simple 1, 2, 3, 4 chromatic scale, and you've probably done that already, or you've seen another video talking about that. That's the best place to practice single note playing, because you use all 4 fingers, and you can focus on getting the fingers close to that body side of the fret. And a much cleaner tone. Real quick, if you want me to walk you through stuff like this, technique, songs with you one-on-one, I do private lessons at levelupyourguitar.com. Apply for a free trial lesson there. Links in the description. All right, phase 2. Now we're on to chords. A similar root cause, but slightly different version of the problem. So let's paint the picture. So you make your chord shape. Let's use D major. That's a common tough one in the beginning. And you strum through it, and one of the strings goes dead. It's usually the high E string. So there it is. And most people's instinct is to press down harder, but pressing down harder isn't going to fix this one either. Here's what's actually going on. Check out the large knuckles right here. One's at the base of your fingers, closest to your palm. These are called the PCPs. I don't know the medical term, what that's short for. You don't need to know that, but what you need to know is where they are. So when these large knuckles fall back, even just a little bit, and your knuckles flatten out like this, what happens is that the pad of your fingers lays just barely across the string underneath. Just enough to kill it, but maybe as a beginner not enough for you to necessarily see it or feel it, but it's enough where it's like, what's going on?
What are you doing, man?
The fix is small. Take these large knuckles and push them forward 2, 3, 4 millimeters, not much at all. Don't overdo it and torque your wrist forward. You don't need to think about the wrist too much other than it having like a soft break to it. It's just the knuckles moving forward. And when those knuckles move forward, your fingertips come down more vertically onto the string. And then the pad clears and all the notes ring. So here's another physical cue. I call it the paper trick or the post-it trick. And what you want to see so obviously I don't have a ceiling camera, I'm not quite that sophisticated, but when you're looking down at your hand, you can see your palm. So what you want to do, if this is the guitar neck here, depending on the chord and exactly what you're playing, when your knuckles are far back, the knuckles right here are getting covered up. What you want to do is push those knuckles forward so that the neck covers anywhere from half of the knuckles to exposing all of them, like this. And obviously the angle might change a little bit here and there, but what you want to do is just go from guitar neck from here to down there. So now we'll set up the D major chord again. I've got my knuckles pushed forward just a little bit. My wrist still has a soft bend to it. And if I lift my fingers, I can see all of my knuckles, like what I showed you with the paper. So now I put my fingers back down. Can't see the knuckles now, but if we check it, you can hear everything perfectly. And again, I've got my fingers sliding towards the body side of the neck. So we've got the same chord, same fingers, same pressure. The only thing that changes is where those knuckles are sitting. So every time you land on a chord and something's muted, don't just press harder, check the knuckles, push them forward so you get that vertical drop onto the string, and that should clear up, if not all, most of the problems you're having. Now, one other thing worth mentioning, this is super important. Now we're combining the first phase of the horizontal movement, trying to get the finger closer to the body side within each fret. That's the horizontal movement, and now this forward movement of pushing the knuckles just a little bit. What happens when you have a chord like A major? So you can see we've got all of our fingers stacked in the second fret, but you notice now I'm not following the snake rule. So you can see my index finger is way over this way because it doesn't help to squeeze everything closer to the fret. So there are exceptions to this rule, and a chord like A major, or even like the D major I showed you earlier, that index finger is more in the middle of the fret. So with that horizontal movement of the snake rule, I'll use this fret here because I've got this nice little fret marker here. As long as you hit the fret marker, that's the 50% point, as long as you're there, and then anything closer this way towards the body is going to sound good. So for A major, D major, you're going to have some staggering of the fingers where they're not perfectly aligned. That is totally normal. Don't worry about it. It's part of the game. And that is all for the snake rule for single notes and the large knuckle PCP push for chords. 2 fixes that come up in every student's first lesson. If this helped you level up, hit the like button and subscribe. I drop fresh lessons every week. Private lesson link is in the description. If you haven't seen micro lesson 3 yet on hand position, that one sets up everything we just talked about today. So check out the micro lesson playlist up here. Keep playing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?